there again, there's importance between Bitcoin and the altcoins out there, and they are alt for a reason. They do not have that same value. So that's my big sell point there.
Actually, when I said I knew nothing about economics, I lied. Because I actually know...
I figured. You dropped some knowledge on me.
I actually know a little bit about supply and demand, but that's it. So I think how Bitcoin works is there's a set amount. It starts at an extremely low price, and then once people buy it, less become available. Since there's less supply and more demand, then the price starts going up than to have them each individually and walk up to them. It's kind of like a bit more time consuming. Now, I'm not a movie
buff. Hence why I'm on your podcast. Hence why I'm on this show. This is my crowd. I can show them that.
Conversation with Global Professor, hosted by Soborno Isaac.
Politician Dr. James Rodgers. In fact, he got his PhD from Baylor University, one of the top universities in Texas and the United States. So, first of all, can you give me a sort of Wikipedia version of your life? Can you give me a summary of your aspirations, who's in your family, and most importantly, what's your name? I think it's obvious.
Okay. Yeah, we'll start with that. My name is Dr. James Rodgers, and I'm running for U.S. Congress in Texas District 30. I'm currently in for the GOP nomination, and after we vanquish that rival right there, we're going to move on to the general election for the congressional seat. I was born in Waco, Texas, just down the road from Dallas, where I live now. Got my start. I was going to be a football coach like everybody else. And when I got into teaching, I just saw a lot of problems in schools. And I really also fell in love with the teaching aspect. I loved it, being around the kids and problem solving. It was a lot less pressure than also coaching football in Texas. So I did that, and I wanted to do more than just be a teacher. I wanted to kind of maximize the amount of good I could do and fix some of the problems that I felt had easy solutions. So after getting my bachelor's at Baylor, I went and got my master's at Florida. Went and got my doctorate at Baylor, and moved from up the teaching ladder to being a team lead and department head and all those things, and eventually became an administrator. In doing that, I worked all over. I worked in New York a couple times, and London. I bounced around a little in Florida, and then all over Texas, and kind of saw the same issues, that they were more systematic failures to our education system. And the further up that I went, the less I was actually able to influence change. Whereas, as a teacher, I could influence change with my students. And once I got into administration, boy, it all became very clear about, some of the issues as far as funding and things like that. So got out, and now I'm a recruiter with a network of international Christian schools. A nonprofit. It's a little more academic freedom for the people I hire and everything. So I also have a wife. I got her when I was in New York. I kidnapped her back to Texas, figuratively speaking. She had our first baby in February, right before the pandemic started, 2020. And somehow she got pregnant again. And so now she's going to have our second child, a little boy, here in May. And so real excited about that. And that's as much of a Wikipedia as I could. It's more than a tweet. It's a lot more characters than that. But that's as concise as I can get, if anybody who knows me.
All right. So hopefully kidnapping is just the Texan word for relocating. But
Yes.
Now the second question. Can you please explain that Cowboys flag you have back on your wall?
The cowboy flag. Well, that's Baylor in Florida's where my alma maters, and so are my alma maters. I don't know if we say were in the past tense. And then I'm a diehard Cowboys fan. We just and the Spurs fan. I don't mention that as much up here in running for office in Dallas. There's too many Mavs fans, but yeah, diehard Cowboys. That was why I got into teaching. I was going to be the next Tom Landry. And then fate took me somewhere else down this path. They just traded Amari Cooper, only got a 5th round pick back. So I'm a little perplexed at some of these moves they're making lately, but yeah, diehard Cowboys fan. It comes into to play in the family dynamics. My wife is a heathen, is not a Cowboys fan. She roots for the Giants of New York. I've been trying to pray for her soul and convert her as best I can, but we're working on it. It's a one day at a time kind of deal.
I guess nobody cares about the Islanders. I'm not really caring. I'm not really keeping up with sports anyway. But second of all, you talked quite a lot about education and how you wanted to fix the system during those parts of your mini Wikipedia. So, could you please explain how do you plan to fix the education system? You only really mentioned something about funding.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different issues with education that I think people assume that schools are run the way they are because it's the best model. And really, we have a system that is, for lack of a better term, kind of a Frankenstein system. And so we have different pieces that were adapted for different reasons, and we've just kept them because people grew up with them. And so you hear this a lot from parents, like, well, that's the way I did it, and so it must be the way that we should continue to do it. The first is the factory model, right? So if you've ever noticed when you go to a school, as a professor, I'm sure you teach many kids, but there's a bell that tells you when you're supposed to go to things. And,
Yep.
Kids sit in these little rows, and the teacher's at the front, and the teacher's kind of the giver of knowledge. And so the bells and all that, that's the factory model. It was this idea that came about late 19th century, early 20th century, because we were just going to train kids to be factory workers, right? Post-industrial revolution. And we've just kept that, even though society is vastly different. Now, what we have done is we tweak the model to where instead of becoming factory models, the factory product is now college education. But that doesn't work because A, not every kid should go to college, and B, not every job needs college preparedness. So, but we have this model where every kid is pushed to college. So the other thing is, the big one is traditional learning model, right? We have historically lots of different models, whether it's progressive education and constructivist behaviors. And we used to have a dynamic array of different types of schools. But we had what they call the Red Scare in this country, where we were really afraid of communists.
Of course.
And so because of course, you got to be scared of the communists. And so because of that, they thought we have to control what people learn very tightly. And so what we end up with is traditional learning models where the teacher is at the front, the students are in the rows, the teacher is the giver of knowledge, the students are the receptacles for this knowledge, and all information. And this is why you see a lot of teachers who love lecture, right? And while if you sit there and you've done some learning styles, only about a third of kids are audible learners, right? We have visual learners, kinesthetic learners, kids who need to, I'm a kinesthetic learner. I need to see it and then I can get up and do it. And I don't think I'm a dumb guy, but just sitting and listening is hard for me to unless it's the lyrics to a Johnny Cash song, it's hard for me to remember that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's okay. Don't judge me. And so, but we still do this because lectures are the easiest, especially for new teachers. Right? They control the pace, they control the content. There's no student back and forth. It's just, and you see this with if you ever have a young teacher who's really scared, I'm just going to keep talking and I'm going to get louder if I have to, but I'm going to keep talking and talking because I am controlling the classroom and you can't talk. And so we do this thing. But again, why do we do this? Well, it's because we were scared of communist infiltration. And the next big piece is we have a ranked curricula now, right? Like all these, math and science are up here at the top, and we don't do anything with hands-on learning. We don't teach shop anymore. We social studies is way at the bottom. And how that came about was the National Defense and Education Act in the 50s, Sputnik. The Soviets beat us in Sputnik, and a bunch of government people looked around and was like, whoa, we really need scientists and engineers. So they give a ton of funding to science and math. And when you tie funding to certain subjects, kids take it as, well, these are the important subjects and these are not. And I'd have administrators be like, well, math is the most important. Why? Well, because that's funding. But why? And it's the most important. It's like, no, but why? They could not tell you. Whereas if you look at a real academic curriculum, the academy back in Athens, Plato, Socrates, and all those guys, an academic curriculum included oratory skills and the gymnasium, and there was this idea that you had to just be a fully rounded person to be an educated person. I would say an educated man because they were sexist back in Athens, but an educated person because we'll be more egalitarian now. And yet we've gotten away from that, and it gets more and more ranked based on how we do funding and testing, which is the last one, which is in the 80s, A Nation at Risk comes out and says schools are horrible. American schools are not learning anything. You have to overlook the fact that everybody else in the world was trying to, immigrate here, trying to imitate our education models, but they were like, nope, they're horrible. And we needed to go to, and we end up with bubble dot tests. That's where you get all this advent of we're going to test everything, high stakes testing. And this testing, it controls funding, it controls whether kids pass, it controls whether teachers should get another job, whether administrators are doing well, when really these assessments can only tell you to a point whether a kid can take a test. I had kids that were just brilliant when it came to taking tests, and as far as traditional bubble dot tests, and then you would do an oral test and they could not explain their ideas. They were just really good at taking tests. And I had other kids who couldn't take these tests to save their lives. They got too much anxiety. They'd start sitting and overthinking. And then in government, when I teach them or economics, we would do something project-based or something, an oral test where they get to explain, and they'd ace it. And so that goes to the idea there's multiple intelligences. There's multiple ways of learning styles, and those are completely ignored. And so what you end up with is a factory model that's pushing everybody to go to college. They're going to college specifically, they need to find math and science degrees. And then the other piece is they're only going to be tested in standardized ways that are going to be built around being an auditory learner, being very compliant and good at literacy early on. And we know that this loses whole swaths of the population and all this stuff, but we're just kind of like, this is the system. And so that's kind of where we are with it, the problems, and it is tied mostly to funding because people want to think of schools as these very, you have great people in schools, and so you have, the teachers especially, just they care so much, the administrators care so much, but in the end, if funding is tied to these certain things, and they have to have funding to stay a school, they're going to focus on those. They become poorly run businesses where the kids aren't the product, test scores are the product, or keeping them seated till 10:30 when tax credits kick in are the product, or going to college. If you're the counselor, they're measured on how many kids go to college, whether a kid wants to be a welder or go do an internship out in Silicon Valley or whatever. And so we really, for lack of a better term, I want to take a sledgehammer to the whole model. I want to redo it and make sure that we create this, buffet of options because we have a diverse society and we need diverse offerings. Wouldn't you agree, Professor, with my rant?
Mm-hmm. I, of course, agree. And the thing is, in these kinds of environments, if we don't have students that are talking freely and just a teacher who's spouting out information that sounds kind of useless for 2 hours straight, and they only let us ask questions at the end, everybody's going to forget the material. Nobody's going to see anything notable. And since nobody is able to discuss between each other, we don't get a free flow of new ideas, just a select part of the content. So that means that really we're not advancing in mathematics or science in the classroom. We're teaching what's already known. So that means we're kind of limiting ourselves. The entire classroom is bound by the shackles of the teacher's own imagination. So now...
right. I want to build on it. So it's not a collaborative learning environment, right, where the teacher and the student are partners in advancing learning. You're only going to go as far as that teacher goes. And with the way we have teacher shortages and teachers are overworked and underpaid, and the best teachers have to carry for all these newbie teachers that you get, you end up with a really limited scope, kind of like you said. You're only going to go as far as that teacher you get, and it's not equal, right? The best teachers are in the best schools, and the schools that have the highest needs are kind of left with who they can get. And, sometimes it's just a warm body who won't hurt the children is who you can get, We have to put those people with the bus drivers, right? That's how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a shortage of teachers, and most of the best teachers are at the best schools. And then, you know what happens with people who can't afford those best schools? They get undereducated, and they're left to work at the bottom of society. And also, the fact that math and science has more funding than everything else really serves to make it like the holy shrine for everybody who overestimates how hard it is. And well, in fact, I'm guaranteed that if you just walk into a room and say, I like math, everybody will start hiding within the corner and screaming within 15 seconds. Because, I mean, math is stigmatized between everybody, because math seems to be like the subject for only geniuses, the top people, things that nobody normally can solve. And for subjects like maybe biology, there might be some amount of hands-on, but I guarantee you, if you walk into a math classroom, even a geometry classroom, you are never going to see one hands-on experiment. I bet you half my life savings for this.
Well, good. No, and again, it goes down to testing, right? So whatever you can test, and specifically what you can test in those standardized tests is what you're going to have to get, because it's cost efficient to kind of build. So I was social studies. I think civil discourse is incredibly vital to a democratic republic that we have. And yet kids can't, and we've cut that so much because you can't test civil discourse. It's something you just have to watch kids have struggling conversations and realize. But when you raise kids to think everything has an objective answer and you don't teach them discourse, so then they go out in the real world and they say, well, if I'm good in an objective world, you who disagree with me are not just my neighbor who disagrees with me about whatever issue it is, right? Taxes, gun rights, whatever. You, because I am good, must be evil. And then there's no ability to have this conversation and realize, oh, wow, some things have real gray areas, and some things are going to boil down to my belief systems or my culture or my experiences. And we don't take that into account because, again, you're limiting knowledge to what can be tested in a test that can ask A, B, C, D, please fill it in and make sure you color completely. Mm-hmm.
And they also have a rule that makes sure you erase completely. So also, social studies, in my school, social studies is just a masquerade for U.S. history. Now, I wanted to move on to your education history. So, what has your education history been? From your elementary school all the way to Baylor University, where you earned your doctorate?
Yeah, so my early education was really kind of informed my journey and my outlook on things. So I grew up, again, like I said, in Waco, and did not come from any type of privileged, I won't say we were oppressed or anything, but lower middle class. And in order to avoid going to the Waco public schools, which were not performing well at the time, or at the very least were not my parents' choice for us, the local neighborhood school. So my mother, who was a nurse, would work overnight and then would get off on her night shift as a nurse and would come and mop the floor and serve as the janitor at this local private school. And so, my brother and I were able to go to this private school just because of my mom's sacrifice. And you may find this hard to believe, but really, rich kids from private schools are not always the nicest to the janitor's kids. And so it was an interesting experience. Then I got gigantic and really good at football, or at least pretty good at football, and people started being nicer to me. That was real. But it really informed my decisions on why we should have open access to education. I did not think and understand why the neighborhood school should own me just because of my parents' decision. And then, as I said, I went to Baylor. I started actually at community college, and there's a stigma that goes with that. And I even engaged that of, well, this isn't for me or whatever. I thought I was going to have a football scholarship and things like that. And I was not prepared for that type of college experience just for me, because again, when I looked at the landscape, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And that was the biggest, I didn't want to go. And that was some advice that a mentor gave me, one of my football coaches. He was like, it's great if you want to dive in and go play football and all these things, but if you're signing up for college, you only get 4 years. You should know what you're going to do. And he goes, maybe go to community college and figure it out who you are. And I did that. And for 2 years, I was at community college, and I graduated with so many unused credits because I was like kinesiology for a while, and I was criminal justice for a while. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I guess criminal justice, I don't know what I was going to do with that. But you have all these things, and I loved learning, and I loved that process. But it was just a waste of time. And so glad I did it at community college where it was really cost effective. And then had some time where I started coaching, volunteer coaching basketball. And I just loved it. And that was when I was like, you know what, I'm going to be a coach. And then I was told very bluntly, there's no coaching degree. If you're going to coach, you have to be a teacher. So Baylor had a great, and still does, education program. So I applied and I transferred over. I did it very quickly because then I felt like I had this to rush because I felt like I had waited and wasted time. I didn't realize I'd gained some more life experience, but I felt like I was on the clock. I was like, well, I got to finish. So I finished Baylor in 3 years and just rushing through. And then I started at Florida, and that was more of a rush because then I started getting hit with student loan debt. Because Baylor is a private school and it is fairly expensive. And so I had to take out some loans for that. And then I went to Florida, and it was like, well, I don't want to waste time not paying these loans. So I did summer, fall, spring, summer, back, one calendar year, and got my master's. Met some great people, some mentors that would stay with me for life that really challenged me to move beyond kind of the conservative background that I had was great. And then went back. I was going to go to UT. I really wanted to go to the University of Texas. But then this time Baylor offered me a scholarship. So I was like, sick 'em bears. I love money. And so got back on to my hometown of Waco and did that. But then I worked in, a real myriad of different education settings, and I wanted to find that one that I felt was right for me. I felt a genuine calling to work with kids from Title I backgrounds, which are economically disadvantaged kids, because I felt like they were kind of like me in that they just needed the right guidance and erudition to kind of succeed, and maybe they didn't have that. And so really worked in, and that was the whole model of why are we forcing the poorest and the most disadvantaged to go to the worst schools? And why do they own these kids no matter what the parent wants, even if the parent wants some kind of different learning, or if the parent knows their kid and is like, hey, my kid, we prefer, this type of learning environment, and there was no option there. And so the more and more I went up, and then the other thing was the teachers, right? So when you have this monopoly on education, it's not just for the kids, teachers can't go. And so the teachers that work the hardest in public schools, they weren't rewarded. They were actually asked to do more, specifically to carry, because you have, a big group of teachers are all within first 3 years, statistically speaking, because it's so hard to keep them. And most people understand that it takes a couple of years to become good at things. And so I would always why are we punishing our hardest working teachers? And in any other industry where you do extra, you get all these, you would get paid more, and you would, it would be more competitive. And instead in education, what it was is oh, we'll give you a stipend. You're essentially doing a job and a half, but here's an extra $400 after taxes. And so, just all these questions. And so that really spurred my interest in getting into politics. Education was a big penny of society's ills. Are we okay?
Yeah. You just kind of froze for a little bit.
Okay. Well, that wasn't on purpose. It was to see if you were still awake. It's a teaching technique. No, I didn't. So.
All right, so I see you've met some great mentors in your life. So, it's very important to meet somebody who will later shape your life during your college education, or maybe your high school education, or any time or at any point in your life, because mentors are one of the most important things. And also, I appreciate how you try to find the field for yourself. But seriously, I didn't expect you to go as far as criminal justice. So
Yeah, man. It's gonna be like Batman or something. I don't know. Maybe Law and Order.
on a lesser note, college debt sucks. So, who are some of these mentors that you met during your time in Baylor or Florida?
Oh my gosh, they're going to be too numerous to mention. But
just one or two of the most important.
No, but I have to say that because people are going to be like, you didn't mention me, and I'm like, well. So, Doctors Wesley Null, who's now the vice provost of Baylor, and Dr. Tony Talbert, those were the two, and Dr. Eldon Barrett and Dr. Larry Brown were probably the big four at Baylor. Dr. Talbert was so instrumental in being like, teaching should be fun. Right, teaching should be about what makes the kids engaged and what makes them fun. Dr. Barrett taught me that you can be fun but also have structure, and Dr. Null made sure I thought through everything, especially my dissertation. When I went back for my doctorate, he was I don't know how many times he had me crying in a corner. I would send him a fresh copy of my dissertation. And it looked like he had cleaned up a crime scene with it. It had so much red ink and errors. It was like, did you dispose of a body with this? And he's like, no, these are all your errors. I can still remember him being like, don't ever use, very, don't ever use it. Use real adjectives, real nouns. And I was like, yes, and you're crying and you're holding back tears or whatever, grown man, 30 years old. But but those challenged me, right? And then and Dr. Larry Brown was the other one, is like, look for those places that you're fitting too. Don't forget that you were like, he was helping me with Baylor in London of like, make sure the school is the right place for you. You have to matter. You're going to burn out if you're just always trying to be a martyr. And then at University of Florida, Dr. Bob Dahlgren was great. He's now up in New York, upstate, playing in the snow, making snow angels. Really challenged me on looking at being empathetic to others' points of view. Specifically, he was very opposed. Obviously, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, and everything is small government, free market. And he's about as opposite as you can be. And it really helped me broaden that people can have these differing opinions, and again, get out of this binary thinking of just, this is just somebody who thinks. And so it helped me be a better teacher, because it's like, okay, I have to meet these kids in different places. And then the guy that I've probably leaned on the most throughout my career is Dr. Steve Maseda, and just, like I said, work ethic, and he's gone on to big things, and I'm only mildly jealous of him. So.
Mildly jealous.
But just to kind of underline the point, your students need these mentors, and that's why I always brag on teachers, even if they may disagree with me on something like school choice or something like that. People need to recognize how hard teaching is and how much of it is relational. It's not about the bubble dot. It's not about the subject matter. It's building relationships with the students. When you look back on your teacher, your favorite teacher, there's usually a relational aspect there of how you felt personally connected to them. And, as a professor, I'm sure you're going to have lots of kids that feel that personal connection to you. And, for you, especially being so young, you're going to be inspiring them, and they're going to look up to you, and you have to take that seriously, and you have to carry that with you to make sure that you're using that, like Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. And you're like,
first of all, one of your mentors was probably cleaning up red ink. I'm not sure about that one. And second of all, yeah, I see how amazing your mentors are. And education, of course, should be fun. I very much support that message. So now I was also very excited because one of the prime reasons I wanted to take this interview is because I believe your wife was a colleague of my father, and you were the former boss of my father while you were still in the Bronx before you, kidnapped her. So
yeah. It all worked.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So I in fact even met the principal over there, even though I didn't meet you, the assistant principal. So, I would just wanted to mention why I wanted to be here with you today. And so, yeah. So, what do you see in your future in politics? After you become a senator, is there anything else you want to be?
Well, Congressman. I think first I want to do this, and I want to represent, and I think we've got far too many people who see politics as a job of self-interest. And for me, I want to be a congressman because I want to represent. I knock on doors when I meet with voters. I tell them, this is a job interview for me. I want to work for you. I don't want to tell you what I have ideas and I have my ideology and my values, and I want to be held accountable to those. But in the end, my job is to represent people. And we've gotten away from that, I think. I don't want to get into criticism and being negative, but I think we do have a pervasive element of politics where the politician is the job, and they're the decision maker, and they're trying to influence the community as opposed to letting the community influence them. After that, I don't know. I would want to see where I feel like I can do the most good after this job. It's a 2-year term, so I'd hopefully run for re-election, but I always something where I can work with people, and always something where I think education will always be in the back burner there. Maybe if you know someone, I can go write movies or TV at Netflix, really like that. I could work for Marvel writing comics, or maybe I'll just be a stay-at-home dad. If my wife keeps producing offspring for us, somebody's going to have to stay at home and take care of them. So we'll see where that goes. So yeah, I don't really do anything beyond that, but I want to focus on where I see myself here, which is being the congressman for Texas District 30.
Mm-hmm. And I support that idea as well. I think politics is not a job of self-interest, but rather a job of the people's interest. If politics becomes a job of self-interest, then every country is going to become a dictatorship. And that's honestly my opinion, a dictatorship or an oligarchy. So that's why. I also wanted to ask you, is there anything else you plan to do as a congressman other than try and fix the education system?
Yeah, obviously my background's education, so I end up talking about that a little more, especially the nature of your show here. I felt like education was a natural springboard. But no, we have so many problems economically. I think the opponents on the other side of the aisle confuse printing money with creating wealth, and they're not the same thing. And so what I want to make sure we're doing is focusing on creating wealth and creating jobs. A big part of my platform is using opportunity zones to invest and give tax breaks to local businesses in places where we need the most jobs, and in places that are, combating the cycle of poverty. So a lot of your inner city areas, a lot of your rural communities, they've been, faced generational poverty, and again, there's no schools to kind of break them out in the sense of being a viable option. So unfortunately, when you don't have industry, you don't have schools that are going to serve those. If you're born poor, unless you're just truly exceptional or lightning strikes, you're going to end up dying poor. And so I think you have to partner I always do the partner education with jobs on the other end. And I think you do jobs through wealth by incentivizing wealth creation, and those that create the jobs, give them more freedom to create more. And I want to create more people, because I think most people would rather work and have that autonomy and that agency that comes with creating their own wealth. And there are people that have great businesses in these inner city and rural communities, and let's turn those into a franchise, right? And there are people that have great ideas. Let's get them investors so they can start that next big idea, and let's create it here. Beyond that, I think we also need to look at more broadly future technologies. I'm big into digital assets and Bitcoin. I think people need to use those things to augment things like green energy. There's companies down in Texas using it as basically a backup generator for the whole state. And I've been working trying closely on those. And those are jobs, again, that kids can get right out of high school, making good money without necessarily going into college debt. And again, it's not saying college is bad. Obviously, college was the right path for me. But not every kid needs that. And we need to have those jobs ready for those students that are probably coming from the toughest backgrounds. I can do more. I'm politicking, so I can talk about everything. But the economics and the education are the two big pillars. And then I think from in there, you got to make sure that laws are in place. And so I'm really big on interpreting Constitution and law the way it is. And so if we want to change a law, that's fine. But whatever the law is, whatever is written, that's what we should try and adhere to and enforce. And that's at the local level with, if we got to fix police, let's codify it, let's get it written, and let's actually do that. And if, and I'm big into improving funding into policing with better training and more hiring of people from the local communities. And that goes all the way up to our partnerships now. I think what you're seeing in Ukraine, and I don't want to get too lost in the weeds, but, it's important that we use our financial might in that battle. And you can only do that if you have a thriving economy.
All right. And economy is also an important thing. Now, I haven't studied economics at all, so don't expect me to know a single ounce of stuff about it. But
good. I was an econ teacher. Now I can feel like the smart one in this conversation because you keep making me feel dumb. So.
Hey.
Okay.
So, anyway, the thing is, Bitcoin also has a lot of people don't trust Bitcoin at the moment, and also a few scams have happened in Bitcoin. Most notably, that one squid scam that capitalized off the show Squid Game. I still haven't watched it, but I don't know what it is. And the OneCoin scam, where basically the owner said, "This is Bitcoin, but better." And then
There's Bitcoin and altcoins.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I don't. Yeah.
And then when more than €1 billion were invested in it, the owner suddenly disappeared in the middle of 2018. Nobody knows where she went. So
there's Bitcoins, there's altcoins, right? So Bitcoin is actually a set thing. It has a set number, and so it is not inflatable like the US dollar. When we run out of it, we just print more, and that devalues it. Whereas Bitcoin is a fixed amount. It's what they used to call specie, right? It is currency that has a value inherent to itself. And so it's important to distinguish when we have these conversations, Bitcoin being a specific thing and Bitcoin mining being very, very lucrative and able to prop up things like I was saying, like electricity grids and green energy and things like that in a capitalist fashion, versus something like Dogecoin, which is just a scam. And there are other coins out there that are people consider, they say, oh, well, all these coins are the same. And it's like, no. Bitcoin's biggest things is decentralized. There's no one next to the money printer who can just turn on more when they need more of it. And it's set. Whatever it is, it's finite. And so its value, the reason it keeps going up long term is because no one can make any, there's not going to make any new once it's out. It is set. Whereas with these other ones, everybody's like, well, I like that idea of Bitcoin, but I want to be in control of it and I want to be able to make more of it when I run out. And it's like, well, then you've lost the point. And so for me, the big thing about it is it's economic freedom. It doesn't, whereas right now when our government needs more money, we print more money. Well, if I have my money in cash, it's suddenly worth less because, the House or the president or whoever decided we need more money. And so they print more. And so that's really a tax, especially that hurts the poor and middle class because that's who keeps their money in cash. More wealthy people have diversified assets, stocks, and properties and things like that. And so I think, and this is not to say that you necessarily get rid of the dollar, but to bolster the dollar with something, and we've done that historically with having gold be the backing unit of our dollar. And so I don't think that this is something we should do. I think, but it's important to have these conversations because a lot of people have misconceptions. And there's importance between Bitcoin and the altcoins out there, and they are alt for a reason. They do not have that same value. So that's my big sell point there.
Actually, when I said I knew nothing about economics, I lied because I actually know.
I figured you dropped some knowledge on me.
I actually know a little bit about supply and demand, but that's it. So I think how Bitcoin works is there's a set amount. It starts at an extremely low price, and then once people buy it, less become available. Since there's less supply and more demand, then the price starts going up. And once the price starts going up, everybody starts selling it and converting it into real cash. So the price starts going down again. And the thing is, Bitcoin as a whole, or cryptocurrency, is kind of on the life support of real currency, because it basically becomes a scam if there's no way to turn all of your cryptocurrency into real world cash. In fact, that squid coin that I talked about earlier, it actually skyrocketed in price. But the reason it was a scam was because there was no way to actually convert it into real money. They said you had to play a game or something to convert it into real money, but that game never came. It was very apparent.
So the key sticking point, and you did, that was really good for somebody who claims who was lying to me about not knowing economics. That was actually really good. But the key sticking point there that I would say differs with something like Bitcoin is you don't have to convert it back into cash. You can use it as cash for itself. And so that's the advantage it has. And that's where one of my big sticking points is being able to have states use it as legal tender, and having states be able to use it more as cash, because then if let's say I'm in the poor middle class, I can put my money and use it in Bitcoin. I don't have to worry about converting it back to cash. And then let's say the government of the United States decides they need $3 trillion and they go money printer, go brrr, and they turn on the machines. I don't get taxed and my money isn't worth less. In fact, if I have it in something like Bitcoin, the value actually goes up and I've made money. And so, again, these are important conversations, but you're right. It does need that. And that's the big push on my website at jamesrogersforcongress.com.
I saw that website. I looked it up.
Good. I clearly you'd read me up, but it's okay. Yeah. So legal tender, that's an important aspect of it. And that's the big, I'm a believer in conservative as state. I think states need to be laboratories of democracy. And I think that's one of the big problems the U.S. faces right now is we try and do monolithic things where we're going to do one size fits all, right, on everything. Well, I'm 6'5", almost 300. I don't know if you've been on an airplane. Those seats are not made for 6'5", 300, right?
I have been on an airplane many, many times.
Okay, right. And so one size never fits all. Ever, ever, ever. You are a little smaller than I am. I'm a slightly bigger dude. And so when we go through this, we need more experimentation. That's how we got public education in the first place. That's how we've got, certain different models for healthcare and all these things was some state tried it. Other states were like, whoa, that's good. We want that idea. And we've gotten away from that. We've gotten to this idea of we're all going to do the same thing. And we're all going to go at this slow pace. No. Let California do California things. Let Texas, in its awesomeness, do Texas things. And let New York do New York things. And when something is good, other states will adopt it. And that's how you get that laboratories of democracy. Let them try out new things and stop trying to. And again, you may not want this thing on your state, right? What may be good for California may not be good for Florida, and going from there.
All right. So thank you for giving me that lecture on economics. Oh my goodness, my hair has been getting messier and messier over the interview. I
blew your hair away. You were just so astounded. You were just like, whoa, and then your hair jumped out of place.
Probably the reason I didn't notice it earlier was because I was busy looking at you and being shocked at your knowledge.
I'm a handsome man. I get it. It's okay.
I'm only 4'7", not 6'5", by the way.
Yeah, there you go.
So, finally,
get a pair of boots and you'll be 5 foot in no time, man. Good pair of cowboy boots. That's what you need.
All right, then. So, finally, I wanted to ask you about miscellaneous things. So, what do you find fun in?
What do I find funny?
Fun.
Okay. Well, obviously sports. I don't get much time to watch them now with campaigning like you. And then I'm huge into movies and TV. I'm a gigantic movie buff. If you can't see the stuff on my wall there, I have more movie posters over here that you can't see.
I think they will get covered by all of your sports posters.
No. It's all over. I have Star Wars and Shawshank Redemption and all sorts of other movies. I'm huge into movies and TV, good TV. I'm currently binging Ozark. I'm frustrated with the writing right now, but that's okay. It's a good show overall. Stranger Things, I'm excited about that coming back. And yeah, man. So that's a movie buff and TV buff, because that's, when you get old and you can't move as much, you just want to plop down on a couch. Like I said, I'm a big dude, and so sit down and get some popcorn going and let myself be transported to some other place, another time. I preferably one. Yeah, there you go.
Movies are great because they kind of, as you said, transport you into a different place and time. You can ignore all of the stresses of reality for a bit. And I'm sure you have a lot of stress kind of campaigning, doing all of your stuff. And it kind of takes you away from reality for a bit. So you can, enjoy the movie. Now,
what would you think I'd have stress, man? I got a full-time job. I've got a pregnant wife. I've got a toddler. I've got a national political campaign. I've got plenty of free time. I'm just lounging around. There's nothing going on that would stress me out whatsoever. I'm definitely not just getting about 3 hours sleep a night and subsisting totally on coffee.
I've seen you drink that much.
Love a good movie. I'm behind. I have not seen the new Spider-Man. So please don't spoil. I'm waiting for it. If my daughter could sit through something more than about 10 seconds that's not Sesame Street, then it'd be great. I could see it, but I don't think Elmo or Big Bird is in the Spider-Man movie. So I'm going to have to wait until they are to go see something in theaters, but hopefully it'll be on streaming soon enough. And I can watch it in little 10-minute chunks that my daughter allows for.
Just tell her that Spider-Man is just Elmo in a suit.
Right. Yeah, we can do that. He's got to sing. Does he sing in the movie? Because that's la 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 Elmo song. That's the big one right there. Yeah. Oh yeah. Wait. Yeah. It's great, man.
You see, you drink that coffee mug like 10 times today. Anyway.
I know. That's because I get about 3 to 4 hours sleep a night, man. I
heard.
Keep chugging along.
Even I get about twice that amount with all of the stuff I do. About 6
I used to get lots of sleep, and then like I said, my wife went and had a child, and so I had to join up, and then I signed up for this political campaign trying to do good in the community, and didn't realize. I thought it would be real easy. You just kind of say, hey, I'd be a congressman, and people are like, all right, and then you check a box and you're a congressman. But apparently it's a lot of work. I got to go around, talk to a bunch of people, listen to their ideas, and try and make sure that they believe that I'm a real good guy and not just a fake good guy.
Well, when you're talking to a bunch of people, it's much less time consuming to all have them in a big crowd than to have them each individually and walk up to them. It's kind of like a bit more time consuming. Now, I'm not a movie
buff. Hence why I'm on your podcast. Hence why I'm on this show. This is my crowd. I can show them that.
Mm-hmm. So, now, I'm not a movie buff, but like you are, but I have watched some movies. I have completely stayed away from horror movies ever since 2016 when I watched it.
That's a good one that will shy you away.
And remember, I was not 9 at that time. I think I was actually 5.
There we go, man. There we go. What's your favorite movie then? What's the go-to if the professor has to if I come over and I said, let's watch your favorite movie, what are you putting in? What are we sitting down and sharing some popcorn to watch?
Well, I think that would be Stranger Things. I'm not sure. It was the movie where a bunch of monsters had to chase down people, and they were hiding in bunkers and shelters, and these monsters could hear basically anything and everything. I have watched a few movies. One of them is Interstellar. One of them is Stranger Things 2.
There you go. Let's see, and that's why I have the coffee in my Cheers mug that my wife bought me.
Of course. All right.
You're too young for Cheers. That Cheers was on in the 80s. You were not a thing in the 80s, I don't think, based on your age. I was around in the 80s. I remember it.
I'm assuming you were kind of a small guy in the 80s?
Smallish. I was smaller. I was definitely not this big. Yeah, I was born in 83, so I got I guess I was 6 at the height from '89. That would have been the oldest I got. That was, and then they sent me to school and I got big. That was the whole. I don't know that was a cause and effect, but I did get bigger as I was in school. Maybe it was the lunch program. We'll see. Do some stuff.
Maybe you're subconsciously in the gym at all times. Who knows? So,
brother, I've been a lot of places. The gym is not one of them. If I stood up, you would see the fried chicken belly that I have here, and this is body by gravy is closer than body by gym. So that's I've seen a gym though. I've driven by. I've waved at people who go. I'm like, good luck. You're gonna do well.
The only two gyms I've ever been in are school gyms and hotel gyms. Not everyone's gym.
Yeah. See, and that's hotel gyms. That's another one I like. When I sign up, I travel a lot as a recruiter, and I'm going to go to now. I just walk by, and I'm like, that looks like it's a lot of machinery. That looks like it would be really hard. And you see people, and they're just like working this, dripping sweat, and you're just, all right, man. And I just sit and eat fried chicken in front of them in the window. It's a motivation though, because they're like, I don't want to end up like that guy. That's the whole thing. So I'm helping.
I think I have some good weight because I pulled about 70 pounds on the pulley, which is around my own weight. So I think I did pretty good. So
yes, there you go. I couldn't pull my own weight. That's part of the problem. That's too many movies on the couch. I couldn't pull my own weight. I guess I do pull it, but my knees are falling apart. So they were like, my knees are like, yo, we need less weight, less strength.
All right, so is there anything you do, is there anything you find fun in other than sport or binging movies?
Yeah, I read. I love reading. A good book is great. I'm currently doing a couple of them, but and then spending time with family and friends. That used to be a lot more of a wide array, but again, my daughter monopolizes a lot of my time now with making me watch videos where puppets sing about being nice to people or the alphabet. So that's good. But yeah, I'm a social person. I don't think I would have gotten into politics if I was not into being around people. So I like going around talking. Now I talk politics, tell them my ideas, and hopefully they don't tell me I'm crazy. But it's been good, good response so far. Obviously, we wouldn't be making in the runoff if people thought I was all my ideas were terrible. But they give, and then I guess that's really it. And then as an adult, there are other chores. Like I enjoy mowing the lawn because that's a chore I have to do, but no one bothers me when I do it, and I can get it nice and neat. So that's the other. I'm just making it. No one enjoys chores. That's not a thing. I'm messing with you. Okay. I was gonna do like a whole map, like and taking out the trash and washing dishes, or just great. Now those are just the mundane parts of adult life that you have to do. But yeah, movies, sports, hanging out with people, reading a good book, stuff like that. Reading a good research paper. My wife tells me I'm a nerd because I love I see an article that's like, oh, I want to read the research behind this and how they did this. And she's like, why? What is wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. Like knowing how things do things. Yeah.
Well, I guess I was wrong about you then. I thought your daughter would monopolize her time not with puppet videos, but with Sesame Street or something like that.
Yeah, we're doing learning right now. So that's one of the joys is she's got 2 teachers at home. So she's already got the alphabet and the numbers down to about 15. And is pretty social for a 2-year-old. Yeah, we got colors and all that stuff. And so we're going to see if we can, we're working on bilingual. My wife speaks 4 languages. I speak 1 and 2 if you count broken Spanish, so 1.5 maybe. We want to try and influx some Spanish into there so she can have secret conversations with my wife where I'm like, despacio, which is slow down. So, yeah.
Well, I really speak basically 2 languages, and I tried another 2, and I failed at another 2. So of course I have English. I mean, if I didn't know English, I wouldn't be speaking to you right now. And I also know a little bit of Bengali because, of course, that's my mother tongue, and that's what everybody in my family speaks.
I did not.
I tried to learn French and Hindi, and I failed to learn French and Hindi, as I said. So, I wanted to ask you, for our final question, do you play any board and card games? Do you find fun in those?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm a tremendously avid lover of poker. Especially get the fellows around. My wife also loves poker, so not just the fellows, I guess. But I love poker. Love a good game of Uno because you can get a couple people. Settlers of Catan is awesome as far as board games. Obviously, Monopoly, Risk, some of the more classic ones. As a movie buff, I have yet, and I mean this, I have never lost a game of Seen It, the movie trivia game. The closest, my brother is phenomenal too. He's the closest. They won't we tried to let people, we were trying to get people like a big room, like let me and my brother play the room, and they wouldn't let us because they felt like it was unfair. But yeah, so no, I love a good board game. Love a good game of rummy if I'm playing with my mom, but she's really good, so I try not to do that. I don't like to do things where I'm going to get my butt kicked. And my mom is a really good rummy player, so I don't play unless she's. I only play if she's not around there. And then back alley bridge is probably the college favorite. That was what we used to play in college endlessly. That was who would get to hold the remote or pick where we go for $5 food, because you can't eat a whole lot in college because you don't have money. But love a good. You a board game or a card game man?
I mean, I do play Scrabble a little bit of the time, and my friends at school forced me to learn Uno, but
Uno's great, man. Uno's great.
I don't know.
You got that guy that's thinking they're gonna go out, and then you throw that +4 down, and you just shatter his world, and it's like, it's the closest I'll ever feel to a movie villain, right? I don't think I'm gonna be I'm not evil enough to be a real movie villain, but yeah, when I give someone the +4 to ruin their Uno hand, then it's like, I do one of those, like, not inwardly either. I do it on the outside. I want them to know that I'm happy that they lost. So
I don't live under a rock. I've heard Uno, the game Uno, a million times, but I didn't actually know how to play until last month. So
there we go.
Yeah.
But you've learned other stuff, so it's okay. Uno was on the back burner. You know, you got other stuff going on.
That's all of the questions I have for you right now. Now we give the special disclaimer to everybody before we start the interview. If you want to ask me any questions, you don't need to alert me beforehand. So, do you want to ask me any questions?
Yeah. I guess my question is, what do you think we should do as far as when you look at your school experience? You're a little closer to school age than I am, just a little bit.
Yes.
What would you say we're doing well, and what would you say we're not doing well? Because I think you have a unique learning experience that would kind of lend itself to a very specific and interesting view that I'm just curious about.
Well, I would say that we're doing quite a few of the subjects well, but maybe not just exclusive to my school district, because the school I go to isn't managed by the Department of Education in New York. Rather, it's managed by the local district, the Malvern School District. So, the Malvern Union Free School District. There's probably some billion-word long.
The other question, what's your favorite book? If you could recommend a book to me, you would say this book just blew my mind.
Well, there have been some books that I've been reading about fiction. There have been other books that I'm reading, some collections of poems. But I think the best book I had isn't really a book, but more of a short story by the depressed man that we all know is Edgar Allan Poe, called The Telltale Heart. And I think you already know what it is. Basically, a man stabs an old man to death because of his eye, and then the old man's heart keeps beating, and eventually, when the police come over, the man is like, "Oh my God, I know you can hear it. You're just playing with me. You're just toying with me. All right, I killed a man." So yeah.
That was a great. I had to read that one in school too. I don't remember what grade. Somewhere in middle school, I think. Yeah, very good. And then I always think of the Raven with him. Quoth the Raven, nevermore. My father had to memorize that when he was in school, and so he still has it memorized. I was like, "Have you ever used that?" He goes, "Nope, only to impress my kids." And it's like, okay, well, again, one of those things we do in school. But yeah, that's what I always think of with Edgar Allan Poe. And then the mystery, people saying whether he was really, the suspicious nature of his death, which is fitting given his stories, like The Telltale Heart. So, yeah, there's controversy, people, whether he was murdered or something like that. So, yeah, really good stuff.
Thought he died of substance abuse or something. He was a really depressed man.
But there's a school of people who are into conspiracy theories. And I don't believe in many conspiracies, but I'll listen to. I like to hear a good conspiracy theory. Sometimes to mock it later, but yeah, there's a school of people who believe Edgar Allan Poe was nefariously murdered somehow. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Some people really like listening to conspiracy theories, whether those conspiracy theories are good or not, because it makes them feel more smart, or at least extremely smart compared to whoever the conspiracy believers are. So
maybe that's why I like it. It's like, well, I'm not this nuts, but yeah, no, there's some good ones out there, right? Like there's some good ones that you're like, whoa, really? You think this? And then, you go from there. And then some of them are fun, like I'd visit Area 51. I don't think there's any alien bodies there or anything, but I'd like to see it, poke around. I know there was people that wanted to go there and they were like, we're going to rush. And I was like, I don't think you know how an army base works. You're not going to just waltz in. That's not how they work. They will stop you. They're the army. Yeah, I like to hear them mostly. You do some internet, what they call the deep dives, where you get stuck watching videos or reading about one.
Yes. I've done one or two of those.
Me too, man. Me too. Many a night in grad school when I was supposed to be writing a paper, so that Dr. Null, who I mentioned earlier, wouldn't have so many red marks on my paper, but instead of working on my dissertation, I was, reading about Edgar Allan Poe being secretly murdered or something nonsensical like that. And I'm like, wow, this is a good use of my time, but it was. Those deep dives are very rarely, the conspiracy theories, they're very rarely anything to edify you. They're just, they're popcorn for the brain, junk.
Well, sometimes you can get distracted pretty easily. In fact, sometimes when I'm writing essays or stories, or I'm supposed to be studying for another video that I'm going to make, I start getting distracted. And while I'm writing the script, I'm like, I was curious about this thing that I learned 2 weeks ago. I want to research more on that. And then I start getting into it. And then I find some unrelated link on Wikipedia. And then I just go into
and then you're off.
Then
I
dig deeper and deeper into a rabbit hole until what feels like it's been 2 hours later, but rather it's only been 10 minutes later, that starts questioning if I'm actually doing anything productive comes to the front of my mind. And I'm like, hey, I'm not doing anything productive. And so I get back to what I was doing. And then 5 minutes later, the cycle repeats.
Yeah, you just described my entire dissertation process. That's how I wrote my dissertation, was deep dives and YouTube videos on completely unrelated things to my topic, and just let's just watch this video. Let's see, or let's read this article. Oh my gosh, this people did that? Aliens? And it's like, no. Come on, James. And then you have to do, like you said, like, are you being productive? And it was like, no. And then I spend just maybe another, because once you have that realization, you got to get back to work. So I give myself another 6-7 hours of reading nonsense, and then I'd get back to work, Oh,
my goodness. And so, are there any other questions you have for me? I'm searching through that noggin.
No. I think you've really entertained me. This has been the best interview I've had, and I mean that sincerely. So I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me and listen to my rants about movies and sports and education and economics, and how I can want to represent my community, but also how I can waste 7 hours reading about the first person who was cast in Back to the Future, Eric Stoltz, instead of Michael J. Fox. And so, you can always waste time on the internet. That's what it's there for. So that's the.
I mean, I would like to thank you as well for taking time out of your day to, accept my interview and speak to so many people and do this instead of wasting time here that could instead be used for, campaigning or caring for that baby who wants to watch Sesame Street 90% of the time. Or,
Reading movie trivia, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
anything.
That one.
You could have done nonsensical things, but no, this was productive. This was great. This was awesome stuff.
No problem. Thank you so much for being here. And I would also like to take a moment to thank the viewers as well for watching me interview such an esteemed man. So thank you so much for all you have done for me over here. And I would also like to thank the viewers for watching this show. Once again, I dare you. And so we'll see you next time with possibly another interviewer, possibly another interviewee. So
maybe.
Thank you, Dr. Rodgers.
Maybe I'll be back someday. Maybe if I become a congressman, I'll come back and we'll do conspiracy theories and movies the whole time. We'll do a whole hour, nothing serious, just complete junk food for the brain. That's if I win. Is that right? If I win, you'll have me back on, right?
Hopefully.
I need confidence. When I win, we'll do a whole hour of junk food for the brain. Your favorite movies and conspiracies and mine, okay?
All right. We had some productive stuff, some healthy food for the brain, so we always got to balance it out with dessert.
Exactly. I'm going to steal that line. That's right. There we go.
Anyway, so thank you everybody for watching here, and we'll see you next time. And we'll see you next time with Dr. Rodgers when he becomes a congressman. So what will I have to call you when you become a congressman in the future? Congressman Dr. Rodgers? Congressman Rodgers? Dr. Rodgers? James Rodgers? I don't know.
We'll figure it out. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So maybe James. Maybe we'll be friends by then. You could just call me James. So we'll see how that goes.
All right.
Probably down. I'm very prideful, so we'll see.
Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.